So I had a conversation with someone regarding marriage, and we specifically spoke on the fact that so many people who are either married already, about to get married, or they desire marriage, they don't really look deep enough into what marriage entails, what they could possibly go through marriage, and if they're built to endure that. And not only that, the person who they're marrying, have they seen enough, have they vouched enough to know that, okay, if a particular scenario was to go down, that person will still be there. At the end of it, that person will still be by my side through the thick and thin, and then examine themselves to be like, will they be there for that person through the thick and thin, no matter the situation? Now, of course, we have common sense here to know that there are particular situations where you would not advise someone else to stay in that marriage, i.e., if the person is being abused physically and their life is actually in danger. Situations like that, the person's life comes above staying in that marriage. So if they leave, then that's perfectly acceptable in that situation. But outside of that, you look at the vows that people make in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. And it's like, I'm not going to say all, but I'll say that a lot of people, they just say those vows because that's what you say when you make a vow in a marriage, like for a wedding ceremony. But they themselves haven't really thought about what that means. It isn't just the fact that, oh, who they're marrying, that person is going to love them for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. They too have to do the exact same thing. So if there was someone, as an example, who throughout their relationship was the sole provider or the main provider, so entering into the marriage, that's the role that they play. If for whatever reason they were no longer able to work, they were no longer making the money that they once made, and now either the full responsibility or more responsibility is now put on the other person to provide for their household, are they prepared? Are they willing to take on that role? If they marry someone or was in a relationship with someone who was very active, very fit, very healthy, very independent, not only did for themselves but did for all those around them, are they willing overnight to have to clean that person's behind, to have to feed that person food, to dress them, to bathe them, to help them through therapy? If they happen to get into an accident, if they happen to get taken by sickness suddenly, if they get into such a state of depression that they cannot function anymore, they completely neglect themselves to the point where someone else has to take care of them just for them to stay alive. Are you willing to be that person in general? And then are you willing to be that person for who you chose to be your wife, or who you chose or accepted the proposal, from the man? Are you willing to do that? And these are things that a lot of us don't think about. Again, myself, I'm not married. Like, I never had a marriage in terms of the wedding ceremony, never had a man propose to me, none of those stuff there, you know. So obviously I'm not the best person to speak on it. So I'm just speaking from a place of observation. And even down to myself, I've desired to be married from when I was like, I say, like in my teen years. But definitely back then, I never considered any of these factors at all. All I focused on was the glitz and the glamour of being someone's wife, having a husband, having my house, my car, and the kids. All the positive things that people continuously speak of, which let me be honest, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be married, wanting to build a family, wanting to have a house, a car, nothing wrong with those things, but don't let that blindside you from the other things that can potentially come with marriage. There's going to be times where you're not really going to like that person. There's going to be times where you're not going to like that person for a while. There's going to be times where you may even question. Now, granted, this won't be everyone, but for some, they may question, do they even want to be in this relationship? You know? And for some people, when it comes to that point, it really is just a phase. It really is a thing of just fighting to overcome whatever problems that you guys have going on in your relationship. And in other times, it really is a thing of, yeah, as I was saying, there'll be seasons where you guys really ain't gonna get along with one another. It can last a day, it can last several days, it can last several weeks, sometimes it can last several months, even years in some cases. Do you have the desire, the drive to fight through that season and make it through with your spouse? Do you have the drive, the passion to fight against divorce? Especially if it's something where it is possible to overcome. It's not a situation where anyone's getting abused or anything extreme like that. It's something where if both of you are willing to sit down, listen to one another, and take action in the positive direction, show a bit of grace to know that, yeah, the change ain't going to happen overnight. There'll be mistakes here and there, but long as you see the person actively trying and you vice versa are actively trying, there's a high probability that your marriage will, pass this, less than pleasant season, that you guys will make it through. Like, are you and the person willing to, fight through that? Like all those things there that one has to really consider, and I admit wholeheartedly that a lot of these things that I'm saying, if not all of these things, are not things that I considered for myself, much less the man at the time, or should I say the men at the time in the individual relationships that I had, the ones who I did desire to marry, um, that I truly thought about. I was just in the thing of, I'm in love with this person, I want to marry them and have their children. But I never vouched truly, okay, if I was really going through something, is this someone who I could rely on? And the answer was no. There's probably maybe been like maybe one person where I could turn and be like, yeah, I could probably say that I could, but I would have to turn a blind eye to other things that were very problematic, hence why we are not together today, among other factors, and vice versa. There are things about me that they couldn't rely on. Therefore, I wouldn't make a good wife for them. So it's not as if I was any better, really and truly, in terms of marriage. So it's one of those things that we really have to be honest with ourselves, both men and women, because marriage is not a joke, but we take it for a joke. And in these times, we can't afford to be doing that.